I want to share with you why my wife and I built our country home on our homestead rather than just simply went out and bought a country property. Hey everybody, Chad Cruiser here with Health and Homestead. And if you don't know me, I'll give you a little bit of my story. My wife and I, about 3 years ago, bought this property here. We bought raw land and we spent time looking at it, finding out, hey, where do we want to build? We camped out for months and we were felling trees. We had no water on the property. We brought jugs of water. We slept in a tent and it was an incredible experience. It was a very special time. But why did we build rather than just buying? It would have been a lot easier to simply buy. We spent months felling the trees. Like I said, it's a lot of work, tons of work, but it was a great experience that I'll probably never take the chance to do that again. So it was great. But why did we do it? The number one reason, and it's probably not the same reason that you might choose to do whatever you're going to do, we didn't have a ton of money, number one. And the houses that we were looking at, whether they were standard stick-built houses or whether they were even mobile homes on, I wanted to have at least 10 acres. That's what I was looking for, a minimum of. And we have a little bit more than that here, but almost every single one, if not every single one we looked at, were basically these kind of hunting properties. And I'm not a hunter, so that's not why we're looking at them, but they were the ones who seemed to be within our price range. And since people weren't in them much of the year, one of the things that you consistently see in a place like that, if you don't keep it heated and you don't have it cooled in the summer, you get mold and mildew. And I grew up with allergies like crazy, and I didn't want to go back to that. And I have a very sensitive nose for smelling it, and so does my wife. So the moment we walk into a place, we could typically tell, oh, this place is mildewy. This place, they got a mold problem somewhere. And you may not always see it. Mold you can see. You can see like black mold, and man, you don't want that unless you're going to do some serious remodeling, taking that stuff out. But mildew you can't always see, but we have a nose for it, and so we know very quickly. And some of the houses you wouldn't have it on the main floor so bad, but it would just be thick in the basement, or you'd open up a closet door and the closet would just stink. And that's one of the reasons it's good to keep a door open to your closets if you're not around much or if you don't have ventilation to them, because it increases the amount of mold or mildew and therefore makes it more likely that you're going to be sick or at least have allergies. And many people's allergies are because of their house. I'm going to be doing a whole video on several different factors that can cause you to have allergies and things that you can do to potentially reverse it. But that's not within the purview of this video. So the number one reason, strangely enough, for us was mold. Everywhere we were going, there was a mildew or a mold problem, and we're just like, man, we couldn't afford a house that didn't have that problem. So even the mobile homes, it's just everything had gotten so expensive that we finally decided, well, we could, at the time, we had saved up money for some time, and we were going to be selling our motorhome that we were traveling full time in, and we would have had the money to buy the land, the dirt itself, and then we could go through the process. And it took us years to build the house, and so, you get the idea. So that's number one, the mold problem. Number two for us was the fact that as we looked at both mobile homes and houses, it looked like if we were to build, it would cost about the same amount of money for us to build a standard stick-built house as it would be for us to buy some land with a mobile home on it. And so when we put those two things together, and that's not always the case. I'm not saying that's the case today. Actually, today, I don't think that would be the case, but a couple of years ago or so, at least where we were looking, that was a possibility, that building kind of a small house like we built was cheaper or just as cheap as buying a mobile home on some land. And like I said, times have changed now, and that's probably really not the case anymore. It probably would be cheaper today, depending on your area. Your mileage may vary, so you want to look into it for yourself, what you want to do. But as we said, even the mobile homes we were looking in were kind of musty and mildewy, and we just didn't want to live in that. And so we thought, hey, if we could build a standard stick-built house for the same price, it just seemed like a good option. And the other thing that went along with it, since we travel full-time for our work, and by the grace of God, we set our own schedule, we could, and actually at this time, it just happened that particular year where we had to fell the trees, we did have a couple months off. And we save. We live such a simple life, my wife and I. We don't buy all kinds of stuff. We're not the kind of people who go buy the fanciest new phone all the time, or a new computer all the time, or whatever, a bunch of clothes. We don't really care about that. I got my wife, she is not high maintenance, praise the Lord, praise the Lord for that. And so as a result, we live very simple lives, so we save money. That's what we do, because stuff doesn't make you happy anyway. So long story short, we saved up some money and we were able to buy the land, and then we realized, hey, if it's just as cheap to build, let's just go that route. So that's the second reason we chose to build rather than to buy. The third reason was that we kind of like the idea. Once we were looking into land, we realized, okay, if we buy some land, we get to decide exactly how we set it up. And, you know, preferably what I would have liked is half of the land to be open so that you do your farming, and the other half would be in timber so that you could heat your house in the winter. And it's incredible the imagination you have. You know, when you're looking to buy a country home, you have this imagination. I want a piece of property in the country with a hill and a flat area down below, and I want a spring coming out of the hillside, and that spring will bring gravity-fed water to my house, and then I won't have to, you know, use anything to pump water out of the ground, and maybe even a creek there, and, you know, that's awesome, isn't it, to have that? I don't have that. I don't have any of that vision. It was a great idea, and you know, you might. And if you have that, praise the Lord. And if you can find that, that's awesome. That would be just a prime piece of ground, but it's not always easy to find those. And if you did, it's going to be significantly more expensive, probably, unless it's way out, that's hard to get to, then it would be buying just some simple forested land like we did. And so instead, we got the acreage just totally treed, and that's why we had to go through all the work to, you know, felling the trees. But in saying that, we still got to do it the way we wanted to do it. But even then there's always give and take how things, you know, how things lay out, because the area we would have liked to put our house maybe 100 feet to the north, but we're getting kind of close to the property line at that point, and that just didn't seem like the best option. So we put it more toward the middle. But still, if you buy your own land, then you get to choose how the layout of everything goes. You get to decide, okay, I think this is the best spot for the garden, for the farm. This is the best spot for the house. And you get to choose all that. And so that's really one of the reasons that we did it. But really, that was kind of more of a default. It was just what we could afford. And so we said, okay, this works out. But then once you got it, you're like, oh, nice. We get to actually set it up the way we choose to. The fourth reason I already kind of mentioned is that we could afford the land at the time, and we couldn't afford to buy a house at the time. And so it was just an incremental thing that we could afford this land, and then once we had it, we had the land. At least for that, we weren't in any debt, and that was kind of our goal. And so once we bought that, the fifth reason that kind of goes along with the fourth reason is we could afford the land, and then we could afford to start the process. So we could afford to get an excavator and rent it, not buy it, renting an excavator and doing the work there. We had already felled the trees, so we saved probably thousands of dollars by doing all the work of felling ourselves and then renting the excavator instead of paying an excavation company. And the blessing is that I just happened to have a friend who had run an excavation company, so he came out and did the work. I had mentioned that in another video. And so point by point, we could do things. And so then as we were able to lay the foundation, and part by part, we were trying to pay it off as we went. And someone might be thinking, so you did it all without debt. And that was our goal. That was our absolute goal. And no, we didn't succeed. We tried to not have any debt, but we did end up having debt. And strange thing. You probably don't know this. Who would ever know this? So we were hoping not to have to go into debt, but finally we got so far along in the process, it was like, uh-oh, we have to get some debt. So then we went to the bank to get a mortgage. And did you know they will not give you a mortgage if you've already started building? And so, whoa, here we were in this rough situation. Like, what do we do now? We actually have to pay. We didn't realize where we were at, and all of a sudden we did have to go into debt, and we had to do something that I really wouldn't have wanted to do. And I'm sharing this with you because you don't want to go through what we went through, is that we had to actually take out a personal loan, and personal loans have higher interest rates, although it wasn't really that much higher. It wasn't crazy. But yes, it was higher interest rates than what you would have to do with a standard mortgage. So if you don't have the money to go into it, a mortgage is better than a personal loan. The good news is, you know, if you go bankrupt, which by God's grace we don't want to, you don't have to pay a personal loan back, but you'd lose the house if you go bankrupt and have to pay back the house, or, you can work that out within the bankruptcy situation. But I hope never to do that, and I hope you never have to go through that either. But just the option there, that wasn't our goal. It wasn't like, oh, this is if we default, we can keep the house. No, that was not our plan, and I still don't plan on that. We want to pay it off, and we're doing that. We're paying it off, and like most people have to, if you don't have to go into debt, that is the absolute best option. That was my goal. But we still, point by point, we were building as we could afford until the end, and then at the end it was just, what could we do? But I can say that we did this because it was just a process. We didn't have enough in the beginning, and you may find the same thing. If you haven't seen our video on how poor people can buy land or country properties, I'll put a link to that. I'll put it below. You can see it down below, or at the end of the video I'll have it there also for you. But that is an option if you are looking to buy land. You don't have to go that route. Maybe for you, what did you do? Did you buy just a house in the country? Did you build? What did you do? Or what is your goal to do? I'd love to hear what your interests are, what you did. You can share it in the comments below. And if you like this video, hit the subscribe button. God bless and have a fantastic day.